At the start of this year, insuring one oil tanker for one trip through the Strait of Hormuz cost about $250,000. This week, that same single trip can cost $10 million. The ship is the same. The water is the same. No blockade has been declared and no fleet is barring the way. The strait is open water, about 40 kilometers across at its narrowest point. And yet, in the past 24 hours, only 6 ships have passed through a strait that used to carry a quarter of all the oil that travels by sea. Nobody closed the world's most important shipping lane. A number did. This is the story of that number. Here is what happened. In late February, the United States and Israel began striking Iran, and Iran struck back at shipping. Drones, missiles, and fast attack boats turned the Strait of Hormuz into a war zone. And this particular strait is not just any waterway. Before the war, about 20 million barrels of oil passed through it every single day, a quarter of the world's seaborne oil plus a fifth of its liquefied natural gas. For Kuwait, Iraq, Qatar, and Bahrain, it is essentially the only way their energy exports reach the ocean. In June, a truce was signed and the strait began to breathe again. Tankers returned and insurance prices drifted back down. Then, in early July, the fighting resumed. This week, Iranian cruise missiles hit 2 supertankers from the United Arab Emirates, killing 1 sailor. Within days, war insurance prices shot back up toward their wartime peak, a number we will come back to. Which supplies more of the world's sailors than almost any other country, ordered its 300,000 seafarers to stay off the route entirely. Around 6,000 crew members are now stuck in the region, waiting on ships that aren't moving. Oil prices spiked to $144 a barrel, crashed to $68, and are now climbing back up. The International Energy Agency, the body that coordinates the oil reserves of importing countries, calls this the largest energy security crisis in history. But here is the strange part. Iran never actually closed the strait. There is no minefield sealing it and no wall of warships. The United States even offered naval escorts, and ships that were promised a warship alongside them still stayed home. And this keeps happening. In 2021, one stuck container ship stopped traffic in the Suez Canal. In 2024, attacks in the Red Sea pushed thousands of ships on a 2-week detour around Africa. The places and the causes were different, but each time a critical trade route closed without anyone ever declaring it closed. So if no fleet is blocking the strait and no government ordered it shut, what actually closed it? To answer that, you have to follow the money into the insurance market. Every large ship carries insurance, and in peacetime, that is a boring annual bill. But when a region is officially listed as a war risk zone, something changes. Each single voyage through it needs extra permission from the insurer at an extra price. That price is set as a percentage of the ship's value, and it is recalculated constantly in London by a small market of underwriters who do nothing but put numbers on danger. Before the war, crossing Hormuz cost about 0.25% of a ship's value. Today, the market's going rate is around 5%, and at the worst moments, it has touched 10. For a $100 million tanker, that is up to $10 million for one trip that used to cost $250,000. Now watch what that number does. A ship owner earns a few $1,000,000 for delivering a cargo. If the insurance alone can eat the entire earnings of the voyage, the trip makes no sense. So the owner says no. Nobody ordered them to stop. The math simply stopped working. Multiply that little decision by thousands of independent ship owners, and the busiest oil lane on earth goes quiet in a matter of days. Notice that nothing here is broken. The insurance market is doing exactly what it was built to do. Translate danger into price quickly and honestly. A missile hits a hull on Tuesday, and by Wednesday, that risk has a dollar value. So the problem is not the market. The problem is what the world plugged into it. A quarter of all seaborne oil, with almost nothing behind it if this one number spikes. Here is the real design flaw. A quarter of the world's seaborne oil flows through a single door, and for more than 40 years, everyone has known this door can jam. In the 1980s, during the Iran-Iraq War, hundreds of tankers were attacked in these same waters. The lesson was obvious even then. This route needs a backup. So why was so little built? Because a backup pipeline is a strange kind of investment. It costs billions, and then it sits half empty through every peaceful year. While the payoff, stable oil prices for the whole planet, goes to everyone except the company paying for it. Redundancy here is a private expense that produces a public good, and things that work like that reliably get underbuilt. The result, against those 20 million daily barrels, the world has built bypass routes for roughly 5. Just 2 countries, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, own them. Kuwait, Iraq, Qatar, and Bahrain have exactly 0 alternatives. Their oil either goes through the strait or it stays in the ground. So the system is one narrow waterway, one price switch attached to it, and almost no backup. What would a better one look like? Option 1, build another door. This is not a theory, or it exists, and it was born the last time this strait caught fire. During the 1980s tanker war, Saudi Arabia built a pipeline all the way across the peninsula to the Red Sea on the far side from the strait. This year, that line was pushed to 7 million barrels a day, and it is currently keeping roughly 60% of Saudi exports flowing. The Emirates built their own line to a port that sits safely outside the strait and are now doubling it. But look at the price tag. These pipelines cost billions and ran far below capacity for decades, waiting for a crisis that might never have come. They can be attacked too. A drone strike on a pumping station once knocked out 700,000 barrels a day, and even now, all the backups combined cover only about a quarter of what the strait carries. Option 2, if you can't build another route, you can store oil ahead of time. After the oil shock of the 1970s, the world's importing countries made a pact. Each would keep at least 90 days of imports in storage. That pact is what's cushioning you right now. This spring, those countries released 400 million barrels, the largest coordinated release in history, and it is a big part of why a lost strait hasn't meant empty gas stations. The catch is that a reserve buys you months. It does not fix anything. This one is projected to run low by late summer. Refilling it will push prices up later, and countries outside the pact enjoy no cushion at all. Option 3, put a limit on the switch itself, cap how high the price is allowed to go. Norway's shipowners have run their own shared war risk insurance pool since 1935, and after September 11th, when private insurers pulled war coverage from airlines within a week, governments stepped in as the backstop, and planes kept flying. The same design could cap the premium for critical cargo, with the state absorbing the extreme risk, but this one has the sharpest edge of all. It moves catastrophic risk onto taxpayers, and a subsidized premium doesn't just move cargo. It sends human beings into water where missiles are landing. A sailor died there this week. A cheap premium can quietly decide that a delivery is worth risking the lives of the crew. So the choice is pipelines built in advance, oil stored in advance, or public money spent in the middle of a crisis. 3 different places to put the same buffer, the buffer that the market on its own will never build. For months, the world has been asking one question: will Iran close the strait? But that was never quite the right question. The strait was never closed. It was priced shut by a market that measures danger honestly and owes nothing to the system it switches off. And once you see that switch, you start noticing them everywhere. The power grid, the food supply, the shipping lanes. Beneath each one sits some quiet number that nobody votes on, that translates fear into price and decides what moves and what stops. At the start of this year, that number was $250,000. And oil, today it is 10 million, and the sea is empty. So the next time you hear that a strait, a canal, or a border has closed, it's worth asking who is actually holding the switch. Total: 1,518 words, 10:06 at 150 WPM.